where we focus on helping you claim what's rightfully yours, your health, and your freedom. We explore the three main areas of health: the physical realm, the biochemical realm, and the mental and emotional realm. We also explore all the areas of lifestyle we can find that will help you live more abundantly, regardless of where you're starting. And remember, in life, you'll either make excuses or create results. You choose. I'm your host, Dr. Josh Hant, and I'm glad to be with you here today. Make sure to head on down to the show notes and click on the link to join our tribe of human-powered life heroes, where we'll update you on new shows, events, product launches, and so much more. Now, it's time to enjoy the show. Hey everyone, welcome to the Human Power Life podcast. We have an amazing guest today. This is Andrew Hallam. He's an author, he's a teacher, he's a journalist, he's a smart dude. And we're going to talk about finances. We're going to talk about a lot of things. We're going to talk about balance in life, maybe not the way that you're thinking about it. So Andrew, welcome.
Yeah, thanks very much, Josh. Pleasure to be here.
I'm excited. And, for those that will be watching this, that I was talking about that staircase in the background behind him. And it looked to me, it was like, wow, that's really cool looking. And then we find out that this guy is a digital nomad. I'm going to have him talk about that too. But I think he got to where he is in life because he's applied the things that he's learned so he can travel around and love life on a regular basis. Is that right?
Yeah, it's exactly it.
Yeah. So let's go into your backstory. Like, who's Andrew Hallam?
Well, when I really just wanted to do what would bring me life satisfaction. So I didn't go pursuing a profession because I thought it would give me a lot of money. I wanted to be a teacher. And so when I was in college, and I didn't come from a family with money. So when I was in college, I had to pay for the whole show myself. And I had several jobs. One of them was at a bus depot. And I was 19 years old. And I met a mechanic there who happened to be a self-made millionaire. And that just blew my mind. Like, I didn't even really believe that was even possible. But he really inspired me to become financially literate. He said, if you become financially literate, you can do something that you love to do, and you can become financially independent at a younger age than most people, which doesn't necessarily mean that you quit early, that you retire early, but it gives you the option to do that if you want. So I went on to become a high school English teacher, and I followed his advice, and I started to invest my money at an early age. He taught me early on about things that depreciate over time, like cars. He talked to me about things that, I researched later to find were largely true, something based on, something called hedonic adaptability, meaning that when we buy stuff, and we think we will buy stuff to enhance our life satisfaction, it doesn't. The research suggests that it's like a sugar fix. And so when you can curb your spending in terms of buying or spending money on things, you can do two things. One is you can invest more money for your future, so you can become financially independent earlier. Two, you can spend money on experiences and other people. So research suggests when it comes to life satisfaction, these are the things that enhance our life satisfaction more than anything else. It's relationships, it's experiences, it's time doing things we love, often with people we love. So for me, Josh, it was really all about finding a way to maximize my personal life satisfaction. And it just, as it turns out, it really did align with the idea that it wasn't just me that felt this way when I saw peer-reviewed academic studies on happiness and life satisfaction. Happiness, I should probably just assert or just mention that happiness in itself is a fleeting thing. I mean, happiness is everybody goes through periods where, they're happy and where they're not. It's fleeting, it's up and down. But life satisfaction, that's the meaningful part. And that's the part that's worth pursuing. It's the thing that I've pursued much of my, I guess my entire adult life. And it's been wonderful to be able to share that with other people and to teach it.
Yeah. So So as you're going on this journey and creating this life, going from a teacher, in a school, you know, teaching your high school, is it? I remember reading,
Yeah,
right?
I started off high school English. Yeah.
Okay. So you're a teacher making a salary, starting to save money, invest and do these things. And, how do you go from that to traveling around the planet and making money and enjoying life and having these experiences and relationships with people you love on a regular basis and keep going?
But for me, I've always enjoyed the idea of travel, and I think it was something that like my parents really encouraged me to do from an early age. And we didn't have money, but we camped, and at one stage when I was 12 years old, my parents uh, and I saved money. I mean, I had a paper route to save money for this educational tour around the Mediterranean. And my parents didn't have it. I mean, my dad was also a mechanic. My mom worked a part-time retail job earning minimum wage. But they said, hey, here's a cool experience where we can put you on this educational trip, but you have to save some money for it. And it blew my mind, Josh. Like, it was so cool we went through to Egypt and Israel and Turkey and Greece. And I just became addicted to this concept, or at least it sort of planted that seed for me of wanting to continue to learn about other people in other places. And everyone's going to be different. Some people like to stay at home and not travel, and that's perfectly fine. But for me, it was something that I always wanted to do. So I took a year off right out of high school, and I traveled, sort of like a gap year. And then when I was teaching, the school district offered what they called a deferred salary leave, where they would take part of our we could sign up, when they would keep part of our salary for a predetermined time period, and then give it back to us while giving us time off. And so for me, I did a 3-in-1 policy. So the school district kept 33% of my gross annual income. And at the end of 3 years, I was able to take a full year off, and the school district paid me that money back plus interest on a monthly basis. So I used that to travel. So I was like, in Morocco, and I'd go to an ATM, and I'd see that I got paid. Oh, all right, I got paid again. And so that was able to fuel my travel. And I ended up getting an email from a guy I worked with, a principal actually at the high school I was at in Canada, a couple of years before, and he had taken a job at this private international school in Singapore. And he said, this place is great. Teach a variety of different internationals. Most of them American citizens, but 54 different nationalities represented in the student body. And so I was in Singapore. That's where I met my wife. She's American. She teaches Spanish, so she taught Spanish at the school. And after about 12 years there, and I loved it, she said, well, let's take a break. Let's take a year off. And so we thought we'd take a year away from teaching. And 1 year led to two, which led to three, which I guess ultimately has so far led to eight. And I guess it's just having the financial independence, which was a great safety net, allowing us to do that and to continue to explore our passions.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's a really neat thing. I never heard of that with the school. My wife's a speech pathologist in a school. And I mean, maybe that's an option now in New York where I live. I'm not sure, but taking that 30%, I think that's like a great forced savings. It's really a neat way to do it. I've always been taught to save 10 to 15% of every penny that comes in, or every dollar that comes in, since I'm a teenager. And I think it's neat that you get to have this experience. Now you're in Singapore teaching, meet your wife. But where does you take 8 years off? Where does the money keep coming from? That's, I guess, the real question.
Yeah,
Not just from teaching.
it's funny because I guess two things. So one, theoretically, I mean, we had built enough of an investment portfolio such that we could withdraw an inflation adjusted 4% per year off that money, and theoretically live off that indefinitely. But we didn't actually touch it. So one of the things that so many people aspire to is this concept of early retirement. And I didn't actually want to do nothing. Like, I wanted to continue with the columns that I was writing. So I write a column for was writing a column for Canada's national newspaper. It's called the Globe and Mail. I write for a US based financial services company called Asset Builder. And I sell those stories to a Swiss brokerage. So I have this income coming in, but I'm still doing things. So anywhere there's a Wi-Fi connection, there's income for us. And as it turns out, the income generally, in most cases, most months, is a little bit higher than what we're actually spending. So we've been able to save some money in the process. And when I come down to that idea of early retirement, and that's something so many people aspire to. When I was writing the book Balance, I found some fascinating research leading to the fact that on aggregate, people who retire earlier end up dying earlier. Now, that doesn't mean that you'd retire at 40 and you'd definitely die early. You could retire at an early age and live until you're 105. But on aggregate, when we look at the research, it suggests that people who retire earlier do end up dying earlier, despite what their initial health status would be like. So we make adjustments for initial health status. And part of this, Josh, is that we turn off our brains and become less social. Yeah. When I say become less social, when you're working, you have to engage with people, and typically in most locations, and people of different age demographics. So you're learning from younger people, and it's the process of you use it or you lose it. People who retire earlier, on aggregate, again, these are aggregate numbers, end up getting things like Alzheimer's and dementia at an earlier age than those who continue to work. And there's also this sense of purpose. It's this
that's
idea
where I was going to go.
Yeah, that's a big part of it, Josh. The sense of purpose. And that was it for me, continuing to do what I really enjoyed doing, but basically doing it on my terms. And I think for people, we need a reason to get up in the morning. I mean, the concept of retirement is actually quite a new overall concept. Historically, people didn't typically retire. They did what they could do until they couldn't do it any longer. That was just the reality. They contribute to their community or their family in a way that was productive, and they felt like productive citizens. And this in itself actually fuels us in terms of our sense of purpose, even on a cellular level. It's the kind of thing that actually strengthens us.
Yeah, no, I think that's huge. The community, the purpose, that's just huge in all of our lives. And I mean, we've seen over the past couple of years, the deaths of despair. People have been locked up in their cocoons of their homes and, afraid of other human beings. And it's so great to see that, people are breaking out of their shells again. Because I think either they're fed up enough that they want to just keep moving. They need it. They crave it. Or they've locked themselves down even further. And they're the ones going down that bad path. So when it comes to your book, just to shift gears into balance here, the title, it says, how to invest and spend. Those are two very different things. When we look at business books, they're always talking about invest, right? This is invest and spend for happiness, health, and wealth. And I mean, you'd really described how you've been doing it, with your creating happiness and travel and doing what your passion is. And I know, the audience that's listening, for the thousands that are going to hear this, I don't think we're going to have two of the same people that someone maybe like yourself may invest in markets or something like that. Someone may invest in real estate. Someone may invest in crypto. Is there a right way or a better way to maybe figure out where the best place is for someone to invest, depending on their passions in life?
Well, I think that's, you nailed it when you said, depending on your passions in life, because you can invest in yourself, you can invest in your own business. So there's a passion there, and I'm never going to say no to that. But that's awesome. When it comes to investing in, let's say, the stock and bond markets, when we look at statistically, the best odds of success come from basically owning the entire world's market, and including the US market, at the lowest possible cost. And so you can do that with index funds or ETFs. And so the reality here is that over any decade, this is statistically irrefutable, you will beat 80% of professional investors by building and maintaining a portfolio of index funds. And it takes no effort at all. So we're talking beating 80% of professional investors who are analysts, professionally trading, professionally looking at the economy, looking at global interest rates. The premise is as irrefutable as gravity. And I actually explain the entire concept in the book. If you ask a Nobel Prize winner in economics about what I just said, And it doesn't matter what Nobel Prize winner in economics you ask. You could ask Warren Buffett, who hasn't won a Nobel Prize in economics, but he's obviously famous as a great investor. He would support exactly what I said. It's an irrefutable premise. The market average, in turn, is the aggregate result of all professional traders before fees. So if you can own the market at the lowest possible cost, you will beat the majority of professional investors over your lifetime. So it really is that easy when it comes to like an evidence-based, simple strategy.
That's pretty neat. Yeah. And when you say this, are there tools that you using that you travel around the world that average Joe or average Jane can go, I can get behind this. This makes a little bit of sense, but where do I start? Like,
Yeah, really, really simply, if you're living in the United States and you're wanting to invest your money, you could open an account with a firm like Vanguard.
mm-hmm.
You could buy one of their all-in-one portfolio funds. It could be a diversified fund, it's all in one, so a target retirement fund or a life strategy fund, they'll call it. And you'll have a bond market component, which is the component for a bit of stability. Then you'll have your U.S. stock market index component and your international index component. And you can buy an all-in-one fund that represents your tolerance for volatility. So there'll be more volatility if it's more heavily weighted in stocks than bonds, but the overall expected returns over your lifetime are expected to be higher. Less volatility if you have a higher bond allocation. However, the overall expected returns are going to be lower, but again, less volatility.
Hey, we're giving you a short break here where you can head down to the show notes or lifestylelocker.com and join our tribe of human-powered life heroes. You'll be the first to know about new shows, events, product launches, affiliate specials, and more. And now, back to the show.
And the volatility part is kind of interesting, Josh, because instinctively people will say, well, I'm going to go where the odds are highest. I'm going to go with 100% stocks. The part here, the human element here that gets in the way is that we get in our own way. Like our person we face in the mirror is our biggest enemy, because when markets crash, and they will always crash. This is what happens. Markets continue to rise over time, but along the way, you get some really big dumps. And if we get a really big dump and you've got a high risk portfolio and it drops by 50% and it stays down for a couple of years, like 2000, 2001, 2002, there were 3 calendar years where the markets just dropped 3 years in a row. If you're 100% into stocks, you have to have a strong stomach. You have to be able to think long term. But this is one of the reasons why sometimes a more balanced portfolio, or a person with a more balanced portfolio, can actually outperform someone with a riskier portfolio, because it's not how the portfolio performs as much as it's how the person performs with that portfolio. Are you going to freak out? So the idea here that I like, Josh, about having a portfolio of index funds is that I spend less than an hour a year thinking about my investments, doing anything about the investments. I get on with things an hour a year. Yeah. I think if you're spending more time than that, in my book, you're wasting your time. There's so many cool things that you can do. So for me, I can accept the fact that I'll be 80% of investment professionals over my lifetime. I can accept the fact that some investment professionals will beat me over a given decade, but those that end up beating the market index over one decade are typically the same ones that underperform it during the next decade. So it's one of those things where you can just, put on the Zen cap, accept that you're going to beat 80 to 90% of the pros.
That's cool.
You get on with your life. Get on with your life. Get on with the stuff that means way more than worrying about your money and stressing about the markets.
Yeah. So I think what you just really described is buying your time back.
Yeah.
I mean, an hour a year. I don't know how many hours there are in a year, but I think that's really a powerful thing. And, using something like a Vanguard where you can set it up yourself, I think I set that up when I was 17 years old or 18 years, whatever it was.
Yeah.
My own Vanguard fund or my account, I should say. And it's super easy. So I think anybody really can set it and forget it, but you got to pay attention to like that hour a year potentially to keep, or maybe have it like an audit. Here, pause. I'm thinking in my head now. So I, with the funds that we have, my wife and I have, we're putting in money Would you recommend for people to like, wait till, whatever day and month to to invest like a chunk, or would you say monthly or weekly
That's
maybe?
a great question. So for me, I would say whenever you have the money, so on a monthly basis,
Mm,
try to make it automatic so that the money comes out of your account directly into, say, your IRA every month and you don't see it. So it's like an automatic tax. The less you think about it, the better. And there's a human tendency to want to try and time the market, to ask ourselves, well, is this a good
mm,
time to add this money? And if you try to time the market, and let's say you get it right. First of all, when we look at professional statistical evidence on this, most people cannot time the market. Those that do time the market correctly once end up pooping the bed the second time. And these are professionals. So the problem with timing the market and getting it right, getting lucky, is that
mm.
you will walk back into that casino again. You will try it again, probably several times. And overall, it will cost you money versus, say, somebody who just invests in it, forgets about it. My wife has a Vanguard Target retirement fund, and when I say I spend an hour a year looking at my investments or thinking about the investments, she spends zero time each year. She spends no time at all. Uh, the portfolio rebalances automatically, and so it maintains a consistent allocation. And she gets on with far more important things. And on an equal risk adjusted basis, she beats 80 to 90% of professional investors without even thinking about it.
That's so I think that's quite amazing. And I'll definitely throw some links to that in the show notes for people so they can, just get a direct link over to Vanguard. But let's talk about balance for a second. I know you go over some of the how, but you mentioned in the title, health is in there, not only wealth. So can you dive a little bit into the happiness and health portion of it for the audience? Just because I think that's a huge piece of the puzzle here. We think about these people, maybe not like yourself, that work hundreds of hours in investing, a week. They make all this money early in life, but they die early. Like, and people have that connection to like, well, I don't want to be that rich person that's going to get sick and die early. So
Yeah,
can you put
yeah.
that in there?
It's I say that time is the only non-renewable resource that we have, and none of us know when our time is running out. So, life is like a dark hourglass, and it's tinted, and nobody knows how much sand they have in it. It gets tipped at birth, and so the idea is that you've really got to try and live for the day as much as you can, and have an eye on tomorrow, not to absolutely kill yourself trying to amass enough money that will make you happy or satisfied today or at some point in the future. Because the reality here is when we look at studies on life satisfaction, money has actually very little to do with it. And we look at studies on life satisfaction as it relates to health, they are intertwined. And so, you look at Harvard's study of adult development, for example, and they're looking at actual life satisfaction to determine what single variable. This is an 8-decade-long study now. And they try and determine what is the single variable that allows people or gives people the most happiness, the most satisfaction in life. And it's relationships. Relationships are what makes us happy. So investing in relationships, spending time with people. And to your point, Josh, the pandemic was a killer. It was a killer because we were isolated. And I mean, so many people in those nursing homes. My wife's aunt is a prime example. She didn't die of COVID. She died of isolation. She died of loneliness. And of course, there were people that died of COVID as well. So it was obviously a horrific time. But setting goals, relationship oriented goals, to have experiences with people that we love and respect, that's massive. If you look at, I don't know how familiar you are with the Blue Zones work or the
Yep.
studies on human longevity.
Of
So
course.
yes, it's fabulous, isn't it? Where you have, initially people looked at a place like Roseto, Pennsylvania, where they saw that their scientists saw that people were living a really long time in this little Pennsylvania town, and they wanted to study it. Like, well, what is it? Is it their diet? Is it their water? And they tested their water. one of the things they found is that the Rosetto was founded by people that moved over from Italy a couple of hundred years before, and they'd stuck to their old Italian customs, where they had really an open door policy where they were in and out of each other's homes all the time, tight network. It was as if the town was a family. They had all kinds of civic clubs and communities. People cooked together, they sang together, they celebrated together, and they lived a freakishly long time. And then what ended up happening was when the next generation, or the following generations into the 80s, started to get the sense of the American dream, some of the younger people decided, well, I'm gonna buy a bigger car and buy a bigger house, and I'm gonna move outside of this nucleus of Rosetto.
Yeah.
What ended up happening was it broke the social fabric, and now people today in Rosetto don't live any longer than they do anywhere else in the United States. And so you look at the blue zone studies that Dan Buettner has done, where he's looked at pockets of the world where people do live a freakishly long time. One of them is the Nicoya Peninsula of Costa Rica. There's a Okinawa, Japan. There's an area in California. There's an area in Italy. These people all drink different waters, eat different things. Some of them are vegetarians. Some of them are carnivores. They all have different aspects that are varied, but the one common denominator is that the communities are incredibly social. They also end up typically working longer. Like at no point does someone typically completely go, or does the majority typically go, okay, I'm done now. They continue to work, assist the community. It might be part-time work. It might be just sweeping up the streets or doing whatever that they can do.
It's that sense of purpose, right?
Exactly.
To the community.
Exactly. So it's all so interconnected. So the idea that we want to build a fortune so at some point we can be happy is so ass backwards.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. And when you look at, I guess, I imagine if they did a happiness study in these areas, I think they would be blown away, because they're thinking, like, what, that doesn't make sense. They're just, they're living modestly. They're very happy. They're with their friends. They're with their family. They're, I worked with someone, or interviewed someone, I should say, that ran a whole series called the Longevity Project. And they went around the world interviewing a lot of these people in all these blue zones. And, one of the video images that just like sticks in my head is this woman who's got to be over 100 years old in Okinawa, riding her bike to a market with a basket on the front, like to go get her vegetables.
I love it.
And I'm thinking to myself, like, if I look at the average in the US, the average like 65-year-old, I'm a full-time chiropractor. I see patients all day long. And I think of the average 65-year-old not being able to, walk 3 miles without being winded. And then there's this 100-plus-year-old woman riding a bike. Like, who knows how far? It's probably like, like we say in the past, I had to go uphill both ways in the snow. I mean, this woman probably had to go up and down mountains and, on a bike with one gear, with a basket on front. So I truly believe, that, like you said, the biggest currency is our relationships, right? Like the experiences, the relationships that we have. And, and I think, I'm looking at the cover of your book, Balance, with the three eggs balancing with a smiley face on it. I think, one of those is money, probably, but you have, there is that relationships, there is that love for community that goes there. I'm sure you're out to live a long time and enjoy the whole thing. Right.
Yeah. Knock on wood. And I think that's the point too, in that there's so much we cannot control, but there are things we can control. So accept what we can't control and do what we can to control what we can. And I think when it comes to human longevity, someone who's really healthy, who eats really well, can die at 30 of cancer or get hit by a bus. We can't control these things, but to stack the odds in our favor to live the best life we can now, and that intersection is what we're talking about, Josh. When you mentioned it's that the currency of the relationships, and focusing on those actually affects us on a cellular level and enhances the probability, at least the probability that we're going to live a long time as well.
Yeah,
which I think is awesome, exciting.
Yeah, I think it's very, and I think when you're happier, you can be happier in your business or whatever, whether you're a teacher or whether you're, an investment banker, whatever it may be, like, and this huge spectrum in between. If you have that happiness, I think the money will tend to want to grow because you're doing good with your money. You're not doing it out of fear, lack, and worry. You're doing it out of like love, excitement, happiness, like opportunity. And that's a huge thing. So, I mean, this is such a cool conversation. I don't really get to have this with many people, from lifestyle, if you will, to like the money behind the lifestyle, because you got to have money too, right? Like there's, my dad always says that, good, like money or no money, it's better to always have some.
Yeah, that's right. That's
it's
right.
always better to have it, because I think money can ultimately, magnify the person's good. Right? They're able to contribute more. They're able to donate money. They're able to give that gift to a family member, a nephew or something. They're able to do all of these things than if you're the person that can't.
Yeah.
I think it's a whole cool full circle thing, and because money can oftentimes get a bad name.
It's funny too, because, the last chapter in Balance is rethink retirement. And my point there is that, we talked about the research on that and that people that work longer end up living longer. But it's not that, let's say you have a job and you hate it and, it's just a daily struggle. Well, if you are somewhat financially literate, you build yourself enough of a cushion such that you can quit that job at some stage and pick up something you like part-time that you can continue to do, something that you're actually passionate about. That's the game changer. And that's really what I'm talking about when I say, financial independence, or at least a degree of financial independence, gives you more choice and more opportunity to do the things that you're passionate about, whether they're play things or whether they're work things.
Yeah. So it's, I think this is an awesome thing, so I'm going to tell everybody, you better start living with purpose if you're not. Better start building those relationships if you don't have them yet, or if you're avoiding them, because you're going to live a long time. We want you to live successful. We want you to be, do, and have all the best things in life. Whether like it's Andrew traveling the world and enjoying his experiences, or if it's, spending time close to home with family and, having a multi-family, multi-generational home. It can be everything in between. So Andrew, I want to thank you. This is a great conversation. Where's the best place for people to find you and connect with you?
Well, at my website, andrewhallam.com, and that's where I publish most of my writing. There's a contact reference point there as well if people want to reach out to me.
Great. And is there a favorite social media that you tend to interact with the most?
Probably not. Like, I do some LinkedIn, some Facebook. I'm a bit slow on the Instagram thing. This is it's a tricky balance with this too, Josh, because, with social media, it's one of those things where, you can start going down this wormhole where it starts to eat up your most precious commodity, which is time.
Yeah, true. No, I understood. So everybody just head over to his website, andrewhallam.com. You'll see the book right on the main page there. And I urge you, definitely get the book, scroll down. There's a lot of info on here. You'll see other podcasts he's been on. You'll see his writing, like he said. And I believe you can probably even opt in on your site as well, right? To stay connected.
Yeah.
That's great. So everybody, we're going to be done here, but if you stay tuned, head over to lifestylelocker.com. You'll be able to scroll down and watch the next segment. And if you want to watch this whole thing and see us both, you can do that as well, but videos only for the next segment. All right, Andrew, this has been awesome. I appreciate your time and your energy and your effort to be here and to share your truth with us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Human Powered Life podcast. Make sure to head over to lifestylelocker.com to check out all the details on the show and to watch part 2 of this episode, which is only in video format. We also have this audio portion in video format if you want. Once again, I'm your host, Dr. Josh Hant, for the Human Powered Life podcast. and I'm looking forward to staying connected with you as a human-powered life hero. Remember to join the tribe, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.